Hello, welcome to another analysis video for the PMPL South Asia Season 4. Before I get into the clips of day 1 of week number 2, I want to give a massive thank you to every single person that's commented, that's given me a level of support, commented on the analysis video so far, watched them. It really means a lot. Thank you also to everybody for the 20k YouTube subs. That is kind of a little bit mind-blowing. It's not something that I ever expected to get, simply because YouTube is never something that I massively looked into, but these analysis videos have given me a bit of a purpose behind putting up content on YouTube, and everybody that's watching them, it means so much. So thank you from the bottom of my heart. And yeah, without further ado, let's get into the action, the clips, the highlights from today's games. So the first clip from game 1 is to do with Deadeye's position and focus in the circle. They have a great position in a bit of a 3-1 spread on the shooting range hill. It's really valuable. It gets a lot of information. But the focus on the fight is really impactful on how they end up losing Shifu down at the bottom of the shooting range hill. Obviously, the purpose of Shifu being at the bottom of the hill is to get information right there. He's right there at the bottom of the hill. Is to get information for the rest of his team. So if a team comes up towards shooting range, the rest of the team are able to shoot down the hill, right? That is and should be the purpose of that split. But here's the thing. As I play this clip, they have got to know that PN Crew, with the direction that they're looking in, that PN Crew are hanging down at the bottom of the hill where they are. And if they don't know, then it's even worse to what happens next. Because Shifu is down on the ridge, like I said. And he makes a bit of a moment. He hears the footsteps of a team going by. The first mistake he makes in this play individually is the fact that he threw a nade before throwing a smoke. You don't throw a nade before throwing smokes when you're on your own, because that instantly alerted the attention of Stalwart, right? Top 2A stood up, got the knock on the Shifu. So that individually was a mistake on the Shifu. However, that's where it comes back to the focus of the rest of the team. If they're looking for a fight on the PN Crew, Shifu stays absolutely low, or he looks to get into the vehicle and move away, or he shouldn't be there in the first place. He should have moved 5 to 10 seconds before Stalwart got there. Now, he can't predict that a team is going to come up towards the entry point of the shooting range area where Stalwart currently are. But if the intention is to be there for a team to give the information to the rest of your team, the rest of your team has to be able to cover you. Otherwise, that position is pointless. So between Deadeye's guys as a team and Shifu as a player individually, that was a pretty big mistake from Deadeye's guys. This next clip is just to compliment CLxBablu's ability to control so many of these circles throughout this game. Right from phase 2, they were positioned in a beautiful spread. I would argue a little bit that they could have been spread out a bit more heavily to one side to get information, but at the end of the day, their spread on phase 2 was great. But it's the fact that they reacted on every circle accordingly. 2 circles later, phase 4, look at what you see. Minimum 2 of the Bablu players looking towards the southern edge of the circle. This is a vast area for them to try and control. But the fact that they know at this point in the game there's a much bigger risk of a team coming in behind them than a team in front of them, they gotta cover what's behind them, push teams back. DRS were the ones getting punished, and yes, there was a help from another team around there. But here's the thing, CLxBablu know that. And throughout the next circles, they control the game even more heavily. Having that player right there, a little bit deeper towards the center of the phase 4 circle, allows them to prepare a lot more heavily for that phase 5 shift, whatever direction it goes. You could argue that they could afford to have one player a little bit more to the east or the west. However, when you have the airplane area in play, that line makes sense once it is followed deep enough towards the center of the circle. And you can see Danny's getting information. See, all of them are getting valuable information. Wolf on top of one of the planes, and they're taking shots looking to confirm the kill onto one of the DRS players. So this was beautifully executed by the members of CLxBablu. Right from phase 2 onwards, they reacted to the circle shifts, they played it on out, and they got a glorious result because of it. Well done. This first clip from Game 2 is just to highlight the strength of Vibe's push onto Zeus in Phase 2 of Sanhok. Sanhok is the kind of map where having early kills and early control and being aggressive can really pay off, but the way they executed this was great. Phase 2 has been shown up for a little bit of time. It's about 10 to 15 seconds before the blue zone starts closing in. But Vibes go for a massive 4-man push into the compound outside boot camp. Any later circle and that push onto the compound is a massive risk, but because it's phase 2 and there's far less chance of a team third partying, catching them out, it's really well executed by Vibes with the timing of that push. Now, initially, I think Zeus's stranglehold and that spread is great, but as you play the clip, you start to see the weakness of the fact that they have one player in each building of that compound. When you have 2 players on the hill above, to me, you don't need to have 2 players in a separate building. Technically, they provide different perspectives, but on the chance that not only one of them gets knocked from a distance, but a team crashes, it's much harder to trade or respond as a team. And I can argue Zeus were definitely caught off guard. But you can see right now, we'll switch on over to the action and instantly Prabin gets a knock onto Icy. But they go, okay, well, let's just move in, and Killer goes in along with Assassin to get the second knock on the Godless Zeus. This is fantastic by Vibes. It's like they had purpose behind their push. They were ready for a fight. That cannot be missed. Now, I will say, off the back of that, the one slight mistake is that the 4th player of Vibes that went onto the side of the mountain, that could have been pushed a little bit more heavily with the rest of the Vibes team. The reason why I say that is because they've already pulled off 2 kills. I would imagine they would have a bit of an idea with the fact that common sense says if there's 2 people inside 2 of those buildings, the other 2 are somewhere close by on the hill, just a little bit beside it, right? And they didn't really push it outside of those buildings. There's nothing really the remaining 2 players of Zeus can do. Ably using that third-person perspective, you can see that the players from Vibes are looking up that hill. And Jiggle is around there. He throws a nade, so he knows that Zol is there, right? He's heard the footsteps. So you got to think Vibes, if you have a bit of an opportunity where you've pushed him massively, and you can get a squad wipe, and just wipe out another player, create more control, do that. I get that they pushed Zeus away from that area and towards I-8. But at the end of the day, it could have been the case where 1 to 2 players are left alive for Zeus and they third party you in phase 3, phase 4, maybe phase 5. Just something to think about, Vibes. Initial fantastic push, great aggression, great proactivity and purpose, especially on phase 2, which is so much more valuable in Sanhok compared to every other map. So the next clip for Sanhok is to do with Paradox's positioning in phase 3. At this point in the game, the phase 3 blue zone is closing in. So they already know that phase 3 is shifted away from the Northwest Island and away from the potential real ability of Paradox taking out a couple of players on the coastal line, right? So right now, that kind of 2-person position on the coast, on that kind of coastal line compound where they drop, is okay if phase 3 still encapsulated a lot of that Northwest Island. But because we're already through phase 3, the blue zone's starting to close in, that 2-person position is realistically useless. And then the second mistake is Hazard on his own. You got 2-on-1 on phase 3. For a team that are not even really known to be able to control massive spreads individually, that kind of positioning is extremely dangerous. Do they know where everybody is around them? Of course they don't. They probably don't know where everybody is around them. Yeah, I can tell you that R3D are to the northwest, that Seal are directly to the north, and Venom are to the northeast. However, that doesn't matter. That kind of spread is asking for trouble. It's too slow. It's too passive. It's too spread out. It is extremely weak. And as it happens, about 2 to 3 minutes later, as I believe circle of phase 4 is closing in, because they're just too slow to respond and they're not really moving in the right way, they end up getting pushed upon and taken out by Seal. I was talking to the Paradox boys and I said to them, especially the Super Weekend, you need to get more aggressive. You need to get more aggressive. That is not an aggressive spread. That's a passive spread. It's a weak spread, and it is never really going to work until your confidence is high enough and your reputation is high enough that it is trusted. Needs to be improved, Paradox. For the last clip of game 2, it's pretty simple, but Stalwart's ability to control these late games is at times pretty mesmerizing. There's definitely a bit of risk involved with this 2-2 split, right? No doubt about it. There's a bit of a risk involved. But the fact that they know what they're doing and they're so full of confidence means that I look at this and go, I trust it. Vibes are a little bit pinched. Stalwart, I believe, know that vibes are there. And that 2-2 split is always going to mean that if someone claps by, there's a much bigger chance of a counter trade. Oh, of course, if A1 head towards vibes, it does become much easier for Stalwart. And I would argue A1 probably should have headed towards vibes for their own personal benefit, not based on the outcome of what happens in the kill feed, but even just in terms of the little bit of a dip that they have and the technically the easier spread and the easier movement into the circle, because they still have a bit of time. But they don't do that. They do look to head towards Stalwart, at least 2 of the Stalwart players anyway. Just the fact that this kind of situation happens is insane. You only get it in the replay, but it is magnificent. The support from Stalwart is insane. The fact that Pika is standing up is also a credit to the confidence that he holds for an extended period of time. Not afraid to make some noise across the board. Top opens up with a knock on the jiggle, so they have that position under wraps. It is on that low ground area, but you can see Action Jackson comes in and gets a 1v4 onto A1. Not something that would normally happen, but I have to highlight Stalwart's ability to control the late games. I'll probably feature them more in through today's analysis video, but to me, that was just a force of beauty from Stalwart. They end up closing out the game and they get a chicken dinner. The first highlight from game number 3 is a classic one when it comes to military island circles, but especially this kind of military island circle that we see in Phase 2. Phase 1 hovered quite heavily on towards the mainland in the western side, but Phase 2 not only shifts continually onto the military island, but it also shifts quite heavily to the west. So what that does is that opens the door in a little bit more of a confident way for a team to utilize the eastern bridge on the mainland. If you've opted to stay on the mainland, it allows you to use that eastern bridge a little bit more easily. Yes, there's no guarantee that you're going to make it across there. There's no guarantee that you're going to make it into the circle should you even get into Military Island. But I bet your bottom dollar there's a hell of a bigger chance that you're going to make it into the Phase 2 circle from the eastern bridge than trying to go for a massive run across the western bridge, which is exactly what Paradox tried to do. I8 were camping, waiting out. They knew exactly what was gonna happen. A team was gonna fall for it. Blades on the bridge, on those kind of rafters. I forget exactly what they're called. The pillars. He gets a knock on the GLV. The rest of the Paradox team are just pinched on one side. Their vehicles have nowhere to go. They're forced to rush out smokes. And I'm there thinking, one, why are you going for a push on the western bridge in Phase 2 like that? Two, why haven't you done any real due diligence on the scouting? And 3, if you want to stick to the western side, stay in the mainland and look to pick up a couple of kills. I understand Paradox were trying to be proactive, but it's very kind of... It's something that so many teams do. It's a mistake they make. They don't look at that circle shift and think, okay, maybe there's already 4 to 5 teams on that military island. Because it was so confidently in that direction on Phase 1. Maybe we should look and take the eastern bridge, grab a bit of information on the coastal line of the mainland, see what we can do to move across in a safer manner before Phase 3 pops up. Whereas a team sending it across on that western bridge it's wild, it's unnecessary, and it's gonna get you punished just like it did on Paradox. This next clip from Game 2 is just to highlight simple but effective defending and gatekeeping that DRS do against CLxBablu. DRS had been on top of this hill for quite a while, I believe from Phase 2. But they are down to a 3-person team, so they know they can't push it heavily. However, having the height advantage, they know that there's a team down below at the bottom of the hill. I understand and respect CLxBablu and the fact that they are threatened with a little bit of caution. But by throwing out too many smokes like they did, if anything, that's just giving a little bit more information to DRS. To me, if you're throwing out defensive smokes and you're coming up the hill trying to get into the circle, it's just delaying the inevitable as well as giving more information. So DRS know roughly where to send the nades based on how the smokes are. And you see that they do exactly that by opening things up. Boom. Nima gets a knock on the 420 boy. The next mistake CLxBablu does, and this is why I say it's simple but effective from DRS, because it's low-key handed to them. The fact that Danny tries to go for the revive on the 420 boy. Yes, it's a little bit further away from the smoke, but it's common knowledge, it's common sense, and I believe AJ with the gun had been given a couple of shots in the direction of Danny. So Nima knows exactly where he is. Mafia Ninja, by the way, don't think he's not doing anything. He's covering to the left without being too out of the way and into the firing line of the team to the north of where they are. Mafia Ninja is playing his position perfectly. And this is where CLxBablu had to recognize that they either full send it, I know they had no vehicles, or they looked to try and wrap around. Their movement up the hill was never going to be effective. If you wrap around, despite there being a roadside, I believe there would have been a little bit higher of a chance of you in some way defending a bit more clearly against the members of DRS. However, you can see that coming through. Nemo with another nade confirms a kill, puts Danny down to low health. Yes, Wolf is looking in the direction of Mafia Ninja, but that's what I'm saying. Mafia Ninja is doing a great job onto the rest of CLxBablu on the sidelines. And from this point onwards, DRS really do control this circle absolutely. Control this fight in their position extremely well. Wolf gets shot at, he gets knocked down. And it's at this point, yes, DRS could have extremely pushed that, but they know that they've done all they need to do to move into the circle, right? So many teams would move into phase 5 without thinking of what's behind them, but DRS covered their angles, got 3 kills, and thought, okay, now we have to think about our position in the next circle. The blue zone is getting close. Damage is done. Let's move out. And that's exactly what they did. Well done, DRS. This first clip of Game 4 is actually a compliment to Paradox, despite them losing the fight. The reason why it's a compliment, because as I said during my previous clip, I've been talking to the boys from Paradox and I said I wanted them to be more aggressive. And this positioning and this play was aggressive, and despite them losing it, like I always say, I prefer a team to push and be aggressive and lose that fight instead of doing nothing, staying passive, and then dying 10 minutes later into the game. So they had initially gotten a knock and a kill onto one of the future station players. They're coming up from the compound onto the kind of hill that's just to the east of the black hole outside of boot camp. There's definitely not the cleanest of pushes up that hill for sure. And I think instead of sending 2 players in the vehicle, they maybe should have sent 1 or 2 up the hill on foot first or at the exact same time. But at the end of the day, I absolutely love this aggression on board. Hazard leaving Wiz so far behind to drive away is a little bit of a mistake. Yes, he does get the confirmation on the Baba, but again, you got to presume that with 1 knock being pulled off, that there's a player from the opposing team close by when you've left it 5 to 7 seconds to really get that engagement. Also, there's a little bit of a mistake there across the board. Magnet steps up, the trade comes through. That's the thing. I really like that duo play from Paradox in that moment. Despite Queek getting knocked down, Wiz is there to respond. That's healthy, that's beneficial. Now, it's a bit of a feels bad man, that stalwart third party. However, it's phase 2 and that's the way the cookie crumbles sometimes. And then that allows entry to push on up on top of the hill. Maybe Glaive could have gone a little bit to the side away from stalwart, but he knew that he was massively pinched in 1 second out of bounds, and it would have been a goner for him. He chucked out a nade. I don't know if he had a smoke. I would imagine he did. So maybe instead of sending a nade, he should have sent a smoke to that side and then backed off behind that other rock a little bit while still focusing on entry's position. However, in the end, he tries to stay prone down. That's going to be the squad wipe, and I believe it is Stalwart to overall get that kill. No, it is Freestyle. Sorry, Future Station, my apologies, to get that final kill on the Paradox. But my point is, despite Paradox losing that fight, I absolutely love that they pushed it. So please, teams, do not be afraid to be aggressive, especially in Sanhok. Paradox will learn a lot more from that team fight loss than if they played passive, I guarantee you. This next clip from Sanhok is just to highlight a little bit of fantastic play from CLxBablu as a team. They push on onto this kind of compound that's held onto by the members of 7C. And they lose a player. Bablu Wolf gets taken out. But Danny's still there. Now, one could argue that 7C should have maybe pushed a bit more aggressively as the rest of the team. They still have a full squad up. They should know that they have that body advantage. And Memo is absolutely certain that there's another player below him. He hears him moving. But just the composure from the rest of the CLxBablu players in the backline is really valuable. Zibayan pushes forward. You can see that in the background just about. He pushes forward to where 420 boy is by the side of the wall. And again, this is where I say about 7Cs could maybe have pushed this a bit more aggressively. They do eventually come up, but here it is. It's too little too late. Memo starts taking a couple of shots into Danny, but because the rest of CLxBablu are supporting him in the backline, shots are taken on the Memo. Memo has to hold back behind the other side of the roof. And there you go. Danny disengages away. It's not much, but that kind of teamwork really speaks volumes to me. And it shows what Clarity can do as a team in this PMPL. It keeps them up as a three-man team. And in Sandhawk, it's pretty damn important. Nice one. So this next clip is just to highlight what was a beautiful spread and a defense from 7C Esports on Bootcamp Hill. They've held on to Bootcamp Hill, I believe, since Phase 2 or Phase 3. And this spread that they have in a 3-1 split is really valuable. Not only is that one player down in the compound covering the support of his teammate up above, or two of his teammates up above, but he also holds onto an anchor point position inside the circle ready for Phase 5. Sandhawk is notorious of being backstabbed, so you really got to cover what's behind you before you really focus on what's in front of you, especially from Phase 4, even Phase 3 onwards. For Deadeyes, guys, they're still up as a full squad, and honestly, I don't think they can push this any better. In terms of, if they had have gone around the other side, I'm pretty sure that they knew that Stalwart were on towards the boot camp side, which is basically the other side of the circle. And although they would have been held on a little bit compared to 7C, they wouldn't have been engaged on as heavily. There would have been a massive potential of a third party. So they're going in the direction of where they know is one singular team, one singular fight, despite them being in a bit of a disadvantageous position in that fight. And the fact that it's a 3-1 is probably the best they could have pulled off. A solo player might have been a little bit more aggressive, but the way 7C's defend this is fantastic. And again, is that player down at the bottom of the hill that, as far as I know, gets a first knock. It is indeed. And then because the blue zone is hitting it, you have Smokey not wanting to go too aggressive, but he makes his way up. Here's the footsteps, gets his second knock, confirms the 2 kills. The third player is knocked down, and it's just that solo flank player that is left up. And 7C's deal with that perfectly. Raided is taken out. Ale cleans that one up. And again, that was just a fantastic team defense from 7C's in this Sandhawk game. And for a team that have struggled somewhat in this PMPL so far, it's great to see the evolution in both teamwork, positioning, and team fighting. Nice one, guys. So this clip from Game 5 is to highlight what was a very heavily missed and punished opportunity by CLxBablu. They've held on to this compound outside of Pachinki for a little bit of time. They have some pretty good positioning. I will say that they've left one building free, but they have the kind of more important building in the warehouse under their control. Zeus go for a crash, and it's initially not a bad crash from Zeus. Nades are flying in all directions. And it is the players from CLxBablu to get the first knock on board against the side of Zeus. Danny gets his second knock. So that's 2 knocks that CLxBablu have on board. Wolf joins up as a third player for his side. And at this point, I want to make note of the fact that Phase 4 has popped up and there is currently nobody else looking in their direction. It's an isolated fight. And this is where the 4th player of CLxBablu should instantly be looking to move from the warehouse into the building to get that full-blown push onto the members of Zeus. Because 420 boy, who's in that warehouse, he's the only one with full health, so it's even more important that he looks to join up to get the squad wipe. He can maybe take his time a little bit, but you can see he has a vehicle, by the way. He has a vehicle in that warehouse that he can use. But at this point, first of all, he should have done it 10 seconds earlier. Secondly, because he's left it too late, Stalwart are starting the third party from behind. That's why I said it's important to note the fact that there was nobody behind him up until that point. Now, of course, Zeus make a mistake by managing to kind of burn themselves down to a confirmed 3-person kill. But Zeus has 2 players. They could look to disengage away from this, but they hold on to this team fight, and there's no push as bodies across the way, and Zeus allowed to get a knock onto Danny with a nade. When you're relying on nades, it's incredibly important that you look to shut the opposing team down, because they're going to look to do the same thing. A second knock is laid out onto Zeus, and they push with that. Yes, 420 boy slows Godless down. Great. But slowing him down is not the same thing as shutting him down. 420 boy can do absolutely nothing from that warehouse. Another nade comes through. Zol gets a confirmed kill and a third knock on Zibian. And 420 boy is left on his lonesome inside the warehouse. He's forced to get in his vehicle and disengage away. CLxBablu, when you open an engagement with a double knock, that is the simple thing of, hey, let's push this as a full squad. Let's push this together. They've crushed us. We've opened things up. We've left ourselves in a 4v2. Do not give them an inch to turn it around. Because if you do, especially a team like Zeus, they're going to take that inch, turn it into a mile, and doing exactly what they did there. Needs to be better. This final clip from Game 5 is just to highlight how good Stalwart played this late game. At this point, they're already 11 kills in, to be fair, so they're feeling confident, they're feeling good. They've massively controlled this area. But this Phase 6 shift will just show you a bigger perspective. It's quite tricky for them. They've been able to get a lot of information with that spread on towards the kind of northwestern edge of the circle, which isn't exactly the most comfortable position to be in, by the way, because it's a little bit flatter down the hill, so it's at risk of Wheezies with vibes. So what do they choose to do? Off the back of looking in the direction of Future Station, they open things up with a knock. It's great. Absolutely wonderful. Be surprised how many teams wouldn't really push that knock. Stalwart though, they're like, okay, let's push this knock. Action wants to make sure that he gets a first aid off, but the rest of the team instantly, Top gets in the vehicle, looks into the other direction because they know they want to take the fight against Future Station. Now, Future Station do make a mistake. Entry, there's absolutely no point in throwing a smoke if you're not going to follow it up realistically with a nade. Or if you're not going to push forward to try and, you know, push in on your own so the revive is being played out. Never mind the fact that the revive probably shouldn't be pulled off, but even if it is, Entry needs to do more to push back STE. and not rely on one single smoke, because a smoke does not protect you against utility. It covers vision, but it does not cover a nade. If anything, it indicates to your opponent exactly where you are if you stay where you are. In action, chucked out a nade. Boom! Magnet is knocked. Boom! CLxBablu is knocked again. Instantly pushed back. An entry is staying prone, doing absolutely nothing for his side. Realistically, yes, he's able to get a knock onto action, but at this point, the other players from Stalwart are pushing in. Apex goes in with the vehicle, another one laid out, and we change direction to another fight, but you can see that they absolutely devastate the members of Future Station. And they come in and they get that third knock and the kill onto the side of Future Station. The way Stalwart played that fight was wonderfully, but the reason why is because you're looking at that going, well, that's outside of the circle. Why would you take a fight outside of the circle? What it does is it allows them to not only play a little bit more in the upcoming circle, a little bit more towards the northeastern edge into the circle and target towards the direction of the last players of Zeus. It allows them to focus on PN crew. It's covering what's around them directly outside of the circle so they can focus more importantly on the inside. It is classic aggression, proactivity, and pretty much blueprint on what you need to do to control the late game. Stalwart, they ended that game with 20 kills. And taking out Future Station was a big part of that because it eliminated any possibility of a third party. Well done. So that was the highlight breakdown video from day number 1 of League Week 2 in the PMPL South Asia. There's still so many more days to come for teams to improve and evolve, and it's been a pleasure to really look at these games in a little bit more of an analytical standpoint and convert that into a video for you guys to watch. Once again, thank you guys for the support. Feel free to give me any feedback. Look after yourselves. I'll see you for another video soon.